Good evening all and welcome to our live on the sofa with event. I'm Hannah, I am the events coordinator for the Supporters Club and I will shortly be joined by our secretary Chris Kyle. Hopefully. She may join us in a second. So this evening we're joined by our host Vic Morgan as always and we're also joined live from the US by Stefani Miglioranzi. Hi Chris.
Hi.
Nice to see you. So just for everyone at home, so Chris will soon be taking over the introductions and Q&A from myself, so I'll have a little bit of a break. So she just was getting used to everything this evening and seeing how we're running things. So now, without further ado, I will bring Vic Morgan onto the screen.
Hannah, Chris, a very good evening to you. Hope you're all well.
I'm good, thank you.
Hi Vic, all good here, thank you.
Yeah, good. We're still waiting for our haircuts. I think it's fair to say.
We are. I'm counting down, it's only 6 days.
At least we're all the same, it's okay.
Yes.
Very true. And I will now bring Stefani onto the stream.
Hi, everyone.
Good evening to you.
Well,
good evening.
Morning.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening to you guys.
So Chris and I will now be disappearing as usual. We'll leave you in Vic's very capable hands just to run through the commentary for the evening. We will be back later on, as always, with the Q&A. So if you do have any questions, drop them in the comments below and we'll ask as many as we can.
Hannah, thank you very much indeed, and to Chris as well. We'll be no doubt talking to them a little bit later. Hannah, you might well have noticed I'm going to have to stand up, but we're both modelling the Supporters Club official STFC League Two Champions T-shirt for this season. Stefani, you may well be aware that Swindon have won League Two this year. How closely have you followed the town's progress?
Well, ever since I left there, I've always kept an eye on it. Obviously, not to the 10th degree, but you know, I do keep a very close eye on it and have been cheering along this year for sure, hoping that they would base the results on points per game at the end with all that we're facing, but extremely happy to see Town go back into League One.
Excellent. We've no idea yet whether Owen Doyle has left the club. There is rumours that he's off to Bolton very shortly, but that has yet to be confirmed. So as soon as we get news on that, of course, we'll bring it to you. We should also say we pass on our best wishes to everybody who has suffered through this awful time, as we always do. Stefani, what is the situation in California where you are at the moment? Because we hear stories coming out of the United States regarding how the virus is affecting the country. How about where you are at the moment?
First of all, I want to thank you for having me on. You know, it's always a pleasure to continue to be involved with the club in whatever shape or form, and I'm always here to help the club in whatever way presents itself. So really pleased with that. But to answer your question, you know, California was one of the first states to act pretty quickly to try and curb the effect of the virus, and we benefited from it. You know, saw a very sharp decrease in cases, not as many as the rest of the country. Lately, there's been obviously in the news a lot that it has picked up. I haven't felt it personally because we have been keeping pretty sheltered. You know, I'm here outside of my house now. It's extremely quiet. Usually it's not a very busy thoroughfare, but there's some cars going by. But today, as you can hear, there's very little going on. I think everybody's erring on the side of caution. 4th of July was this past weekend, so everyone was celebrating a little bit. I'm sure that will, you know, not help us with the uptick, but it's understandable that people are getting a little bit cooped in and feel the need to go out and feel human contact, you know.
Sure, it's always wonderful to hear birdsong from somewhere like California. What a miracle of modern science. Well, it's good to know you're safe, first and foremost. Whereabouts are you, just so that we, you know, get an idea of whereabouts you are?
I'm just 40 minutes south of San Francisco. San Jose, California is the specific place. Our neighborhood is called Willow Glen in San Jose.
Lovely. Let's go back to the very beginning then. Of course, you weren't born in the United States. You were born in Brazil, and you were there until you were 12. So, if you're going to play football, you might as well be born in Brazil, right? I mean, that's not a bad place to start, is it?
No, I mean, it's you're basically born with a ball at your feet. You come out of the womb kicking. My mom did say I had a powerful kick in her belly. It resulted in some good shots, not many goals, but it's for sure definitely a great place to grow up and get introduced to the game, because it's all around. The park across the street from me was City Park. It was always packed with kids playing. I started playing there, indoor soccer. My father was a professional soccer player. I don't know that it was talked about much while I was playing, but he suffered a knee injury early in his career, which prevented him from going a little bit further. But, trials with Corinthians and potential to sign clubs like that. So soccer runs in our blood for sure, especially coming down from Brazil.
So therefore, you then moved to the US when you're 12, I think, which is slightly different, because football, or soccer, as they call it on that side of the pond, is not endemic, is it? I mean, very much not endemic to the country. How much of a change was it for you?
I mean, as much as America is not viewed as a footballing country, I got here and the youth soccer scene is very, very big. I was fortunate to be in a community in New York that's very rich with a lot of diverse ethnicities and diverse cultures, and there's a lot of Englishmen, a lot of Italians, Irishmen, you name it, they're congregating in New York, and we're playing sports, and we have our kids playing our main sport. So I was right away into the fold in the youth soccer programs. Sure, we're not getting the high level professional level coaching at an early age to help us develop to the levels that we see throughout Europe, but there's definitely a lot of passion, and I was fortunate enough to be in an environment rich with soccer culture in New York.
And I think you did all right, didn't you? I mean, let's be honest, at the NCAA championships. Now, just explain to us what that is, because it's quite a big deal, isn't it? Let's be honest. Just explain what that is.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a strange format, really. You look at how many universities there are in the US, and they're divided into divisions for sporting reasons. I ended up going to a Division I school, which is the highest level, St. John's University, again in New York. A wonderful coach, one of the best coaches I ever had in terms of, encouraging the players, preparing them for games, for every single moment in games. So I have to credit a lot the work that I underwent with Coach Mazer, Sean Kenny, which is an Irishman, Gary Book, which was an Englishman, all in that coaching staff there, which gave me great exposure to a much, much higher level of soccer than I had ever been exposed to beforehand. So, growing up in New York and having that as the backdrop for it all, it set me up for success. I feel extremely fortunate to have had the career that I did. You say, sure, it would have been nice to have achieved even more, but the college game is, there's, I don't know the exact number, but there's hundreds of universities competing for the national championship. At the time when I was playing in college, University of Virginia was kind of the program to beat. St. John's had been a powerhouse in the northeast of the country for several years. I joined them after playing my freshman year at Iona College, which was a smaller university, where I received a scholarship to play. And then I was fortunate enough to do well there, grow and develop physically enough to go and be able to compete at a higher level at St. John's. And, winning the national championship in '96, it was my second year in college, was an unbelievable achievement, because it's a very difficult task for sure. to it.
Sure. And not only that, you were in the 1998 All-Star team, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, they have every year they select the college All-American teams, so I think because I was in such a good program, I was the beneficiary of being in the limelight a little bit because of the status of our university. So I of course performed well as well. I think I've been pretty humble my whole life, and maybe that's one of the things that kept me from reaching even further in my career. But I don't regret being the way I am. But yeah, I did quite well, and I'm proud of what I achieved and the way in which I achieved it.
Sure. So the decision then perhaps to try your luck in England, trials with Everton and Portsmouth. And there's quite an Everton connection with who you get signed by in a way. The first of those players, of course, for Everton legend, Alan Ball, World Cup winner with England. Yeah. Very impressed with obviously what he saw. How did the connection with Alan Ball come about? I got to know him very well. I was a sports producer at Radio Devon for some years. He was manager of Exeter City. The word passionate comes along with Alan Ball, does it not? How did it go with Bally?
Absolutely. I mean, besides the passion for football, which all Englishmen have, that's the one thing I loved about being there. It's how much the game means to you, and nothing's going to get in the way of that. And being involved in that environment for me was remarkable. Bally had that, but he had an affinity to players, and he was just a wonderful man too. I don't know how many people got to know him as closely as I did, him and his family. And just, football was a major part of his life, but once you came into it, there was bigger things as well, which he never let slip by. He was always taking care of us. I remember when I first joined Portsmouth, him showing me around Warsash where he lived, so I could find a house and really be able to focus on my football there, be close by him and have his support. So I can't say enough about him and his family.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I used to trot out and interview him every Thursday, and he'd get a tray of tea brought in so that the local media could have a cup of tea whilst you interviewed him. And you have to pinch yourself saying this is one of 11 Englishmen who've won the World Cup for England. It's quite a thing, isn't it? I mean, go on, sorry.
No, amazing. I if you ever had the chance to, or anyone who had the chance to visit his house in Warsash, you'd walk in and then the foyer was a crystal ball that was obviously gifted to them by the FA, and it had every player's etched signature on it. All his caps were hanging on the wall, his England caps. It was really amazing. When you walked in, you knew you were walking into the presence of something extraordinary. Like you said, only 11 players. It's remarkable.
Yeah, he came up to me at Exeter Races one day and said, "Could you get me in?" I said, "You're Alan Ball. You can walk in, for goodness sake. Just you don't need anybody else to get you in." So you had a go at Everton as well. Presumably, was there a choice? What happened there?
Oh, it's interesting. Like you were talking about the college game. It's not a very common travel path for Americans, especially at that time when football wasn't what it is here today. American football has come a very, very long way, and now it seems like there's a conveyor belt of players coming out of here going to Europe. But to be a 21-year-old coming out of the college game and then being able to jump into the English game was a remarkable achievement, really. I do give myself a little bit of credit now looking back for making that jump. But the Everton thing came about because the agency that I now work for as a sports agent is First Wave Sports Marketing, and they had represented me my 15 years of my career. When I was coming out of playing college, the gentleman who led the companies was an Englishman by the name of Graham Smith. He spotted me in college, and obviously he had links with Everton, had been successful in taking players there prior to me. And due to my Italian heritage, I had an Italian citizenship, so the opportunity to go and try and play in Europe came about. England through Graham, and my first step into English football was at Everton. You know, I was there for about 3 months in Merseyside back in '99, early '99, I think, or '98 even. And what happened was during the 3 months I was there, it was terrible weather in Merseyside, believe it or not. And so I ended up having to, at the end of near the end of those 3 months, play in a reserve game for Portsmouth against Tottenham at St. Albans. And it was just a way for Everton to see me in a competitive match and make their final decision. So I went and played. Alan Ball was there, obviously watching his reserve team. And we basically came to an agreement, my agent and I, for me to join them and go down to Portsmouth on the coach that very evening. You know, I just picked up my bag and got on. It was an opportunity for me to, you know, I had the choice of maybe staying at Everton, playing and signing a reserve team contract as a 21, almost 22-year-old, or to go down to Portsmouth and be a first team player. You know, and that rang truer to me. I wanted the experience. Looking back, maybe going to Everton would have taken me further places, but you know, I don't regret it at all because it was an amazing experience. I happened to have an unbelievable game against a Tottenham squad that had millions of pounds on the field, and you know, from there things developed a little bit more.
Well, they did, and you had a 3-year deal at Portsmouth. How did that go? Because obviously, you know, it's quite a hotbed, isn't it, Portsmouth? They're involved in the playoffs at the moment for a place in the Championship. But, you know, how did it go at Portsmouth? Did it go how you wanted it to go? I'm going to bring up the subject of injury, of course, a little bit later. How was it at Fratton Park for you?
Again, you know, you talk about the English game, the fans, and Portsmouth is unbelievable club. The supporters are what make it, like a lot of the clubs in the UK. I love that there's that fiber that keeps the club going always, and I know I always had an affinity to it. I always related it to it very much, and you know, the opportunity to go to Portsmouth was one that I thoroughly enjoyed. It came about obviously as a result of that St. Albans match. At that time, I was only able to sign a contract until the very end of the season, which was very short-lived. Portsmouth were in receivership at that time, so they couldn't give me a long-term contract. I did well enough for them to offer me a 3-year deal and for me to extend. Again, another topic that not talked about much was the fact that, you know, I had opted, I had the opportunity to go to Bolton after that initial period. Colin Todd was the manager at the time. I was on the phone with him, on the phone with Bally the whole time, and basically I had agreed to go to Bolton. And it wasn't until about 2 weeks before preseason started that Colin Todd called me. He said, listen, I'm not going to be able to finalize it because I'm resigning. The deal basically was on the table. He wanted me there. I had done very well against Bolton in the previous season. Showed myself well, and my contracting there was subject to them releasing some players as well. So I hadn't put pen to paper, and then the manager resigned. Fortunately for me, Alan Ball, you know, was still my biggest fan, and I had the opportunity to sign a 3-year deal at that time with them, which again I don't regret at all. You know, it was unbelievable times, and yeah, we'll probably get into it a little bit more. I'll tell you more about some of those particular experiences and characters I met.
Marvellous. Well, go on, tell us now then. What was your favourite moment at Portsmouth, would you say? Because, you know, whenever Alan Ball's on the touchline, for goodness sake, all you can hear is his voice, really. I mean, it's an extraordinary voice, wasn't it? But what about your time at Portsmouth? What were your favourite moments?
There's obviously my debut the following season in scoring against Sheffield United. Was an incredible situation. The number of close relationships I forged there with players. One ended up becoming my teammate at Swindon Town, Sammy Igo. There's just a lot of good memories of just growing as an individual. And unfortunately, my football, because of injuries, and I know you're going to ask me those questions before, so I'll leave you to it.
Okay.
It was challenging for sure. So I think I made the most of really difficult situations, but I think what sticks with you the most is, the belief that Wally had in me, the opportunity to play for the first time in front of such a passionate crowd, and things of that nature. I'm still reminded on a weekly basis by fans who reach out, or reporters who contact me, by my teammates who were there, of different things that happen. There's a funny one not too long ago of a player in Europe, I don't recall who it was, juggling his chewing gum at halftime while he was warming up, and one of the Portsmouth fans recalled that it's old news. I'd seen Stefani do that before.
Fabulous. So that comes to an end, and then I mention Everton because there's another Everton connection here, is there not? Andy King, who of course played for Everton, famously scored against Liverpool in a Merseyside derby. He comes knocking, and because of injury, to begin with, you're given a month-by-month contract, are you not? So how did that all come about?
Yeah, my contract finished at Portsmouth. Actually, I finished very well there. I had finally started getting over my knee issues, which weren't huge, but I had a problem with swelling that was kind of debilitating and keeping me from training regularly, playing regularly. But towards the end of that time at Portsmouth, Harry Redknapp came in. I had been kind of shifted to a center back position by Neil McNabb, who was, again, another wonderful person that I got to play under as a Portsmouth reserve coach. And he really believed in me, gave me an opportunity at center back. And then as a result, Harry gave me a couple matches there, likening me to some of football's greatest at times. And so when my time at Portsmouth came to an end, it came as a bit of a surprise because I had been playing well and finding my form again. But then I couldn't begrudge Harry for having to make a decision to let a player who was out of contract go, and he had inherited a club that had some 40-odd professionals on their books, So he was very open and honest with me. That's one of the things I really appreciated with Harry. I had that kind of relationship with my managers, where I basically approached them and we talk like men. And I feel like players, when you take that step, you are treated that way. You're treated with respect. They understand that there's more that they have to consider to your life. And unfortunately, it wasn't to be there. But my agents at the time, Mike Williams in the UK and Graham Smith over here, helped to pave the way for me to go and do a little bit of a training stint with Swindon Town, and I did well enough. But because of the injury concerns, it was structured as a month-to-month. But I made sure that I showed up at that preseason, and I was, like a rabid dog foaming at the mouth, needing to make the team. And I was probably my best during that time, that first year that I joined Swindon Town.
Well, you made your debut on quite an auspicious occasion. We were talking about Sam Parkin before we started, and of course, you made your debut on the Sam Parkin debut, did you not? The 3-1 win against Barnsley when he got a hat trick. And I know when we spoke to Sammy a few weeks ago, he mentioned how great a relationship he has with you. That's a decent way to start, wouldn't it? A 3-1 home win against Barnsley. Sammy Parkin gets a hat-trick, or Super Sammy, of course, as we should call it.
Yeah, Super Sammy was, talk about a guy who had a nose for goal, and he knew how to just side foot it, and knew where he wanted to go. He had a picture in his head of where he was going to put the ball before he got it. It's one of those players that, again, unfortunately, because of injury, we didn't see him go to higher levels, but certainly one of the players I played with who had that potential. I became very close with Sam because Andy King afforded us the opportunity to travel in from London, and train and play for Swindon. It was a difficult time for me, just transitioning from leaving Portsmouth and finding a location to live that allowed me to be closer. But Sammy and I, as a result, commuted every day in together. Most of the time he bored me to death. Yeah. No, Sam was unbelievable. And that Barnsley match, going up against what would have been the favorites to win the league that year. They had just gotten relegated, if I recall correctly, and were a very, very strong team. We played an incredible game, and of course Sam made his mark, and made my job look easier, for sure.
Well, I think you're being a bit humble there, because I think most people remember you. And I, before we started this, when we put out the message that we were going to talk to you, there was one word that sprung to mind during your time at Swindon: classy. And your game was, wasn't it? I mean, let's be honest. You came in and you were one of these players that immediately caught the eye. You obviously settled in quite easily to the style of play that Andy King had.
Yeah, Kingy, I think, was a little bit misunderstood, I think, because you talk about football and having his players wanting to run through a wall for him. He's that kind of a person as well. I talked about Bally, Harry Redknapp, and these guys that made you want to do more, and Kingy had that effect on me, like the belief he showed to bring me in. I know the contract didn't reflect that as much, but I wasn't concerned about that. I just wanted the opportunity to play. He was able to assemble an incredible team on tight finances. I don't know the ins and outs of what was going on behind the scenes at the club at that time, but certainly didn't seem like we had a lot of money to be splashing around. And the fact that he could go out and get the players that he did, and then implement a playing style that suited the group, was a credit to him.
Well, you mentioned Sammy Igoe. Of course, he came in and was also one of the great characters at that time, wasn't he? I mean, again, a classy player. I think you mentioned he was with you at Portsmouth, but boy, he had some skill, didn't he, Sammy Igoe?
Yeah, Sammy is a player that you had to keep an eye on, because otherwise he turned the game on its head on you. He a little bit shifty, hiding a little bit, and then all of a sudden he's in the right spot and he's causing hurt. So I think with what he had behind him, providing a little bit of cover, Kingy was able to get the best out of him. And Brian Howard that year were remarkable for us. Of course, Brian went on to have a really great career. And again, I look back at the players that made up that team. It was some very, very good players at that time, and I felt fortunate to be a part of that group. In terms of my play, I grew up watching soccer a certain way, and ambition obviously is always to be a professional player, but it was more about loving the game and doing it. And I think money has gotten to an even higher level. It's kind of stupid at the moment, I must say, but that's the reality of the business, and unfortunately takes away a little bit from a player's focus and the player's mentality going into play. Really, for me, it was Swindon Town could have paid me very little, I would have stayed, and I would have been happy to play. You know, that's.
Well, it's interesting you say that. We'll get the agent's perspective a little later, because I'm guessing when you're trying to do a deal for a player, you're trying to get as much as possible. We'll talk about that later. Let's talk about the playoff season and the semi-final. You missed the first leg, I think, did you not, at the county ground because of injury? Yeah. And then there was that second leg, never to be forgotten, second leg at the Withdean, where most of us who were at the away end got a dreadful soaking. Awful night. Well, it wasn't an awful night till about 30 seconds from the end of extra time. From a player's perspective, how was that second leg at the Withdean?
Yeah, as you say, I missed the first leg due to an injury. It wasn't a serious one. I had an ankle twist that was kind of swollen, and I had suffered it the game before. Unfortunately missed that. It sat in the stands and watched us get a draw, and then went down to Brighton full of confidence, and you know, we knew how good a team we were. We thought we were better than Brighton, and I still to this day think we were better than them on the night as well. But the game, you know, for their goal, the way it just happened with a silly throw-in and to end up on the back of our net, in that sense, it was tough. And to lose in penalties is always a gutting way to go out, you know. But we gave it our best. We wanted to go further. I think, like I said, the team deserved to go further. It would have been a great moment to go to. At that time, we probably would have played at Wales, right?
In Cardiff, yeah.
Against Bristol, which would have brought some happiness to the Swindon Town fans. But it wasn't meant to be, and sadly, you know, no pun intended, we got kicked in the teeth. Sam literally lost his teeth in that game, but that's the way football is sometimes, a bit cruel.
Yeah, he wasn't too happy about that game when he spoke to us a couple of weeks ago. I mean, what was it like in the dressing room? I mean, you know, as fans, we left that stadium thinking we're that close to playing Danny Wilson, as it turned out, of course, at Bristol City, for a future Swindon manager. How was it in the dressing room? I'm dejected, probably is the word, is it? Yeah,
I mean, you know, you don't get many chances to get into the playoffs as a player. You don't get many chances to win championships. So you pour your heart out, you know, your preparation for it, and it's exhausting. It's the end of a long year where your dreams are coming to fruition for once, and so all the emotions come flowing out. There's a lot of tears, a lot of anger, disappointment. You know, of course, we all bonded together and tried to, you know, drown our sorrows a little bit by going out for a drink. But it was honestly such a devastating situation that we went out and nobody wanted to be out. People must have hated to hang out with us that night. But so it didn't last very long. There was a couple of drinks and everybody basically back to the rooms. And yeah, you know, you have to move on, don't you? Yeah. Subsequent to that, I mean, let's talk about injuries then, because you know, you mentioned your father had a knee injury, and you suffered a series of injuries. Just take us through how frustrating that is for a footballer to keep getting injuries that prevent you from playing, because at the end of the day, that's what you want to do, isn't it? How frustrating was that time for you? Yeah, extremely frustrating. At Portsmouth, you know, I got signed and came in as a 21-year-old, basically starter, you know, so I'm getting my chance to shine. I'm doing really well for the club, and out of nowhere, I don't remember who we're playing against. I was warming up for the match, and my knee locked up on me in the middle of warm up, and I went in and told Bolly, look, I can't go. My knee's locking. you need to play somebody else. So I stepped out of that, found out there's some loose cartilage from the back of my kneecap floating around. So I had a surgery then that took, it was just a cleanup. Fortunately, nothing on a weight-bearing area, which was why I was able to continue playing as long as I did. But the repercussions of that surgery, I ended up having a lot of swelling in my joint from time to time, and it was really difficult, restricted my mobility. When I went to Portsmouth, I was a much quicker, nimble player than you probably saw at Swindon. I was able to break lines with dribbling and that kind of stuff. And as I progressed and dealt with the injury, it became a little bit more difficult to do those sort of things. So I started sitting back, and King, he still used me as a second midfielder, kind of ahead of Matt Hewlett, and I had a little bit of freedom to go and join the attack. But at Portsmouth, I had even more, and then beyond my Swindon Town years, I came to the US and started being used as a holding midfielder, which suited me well because I had physically gotten a little bit thicker, and I could always still cover the ground. It's just not that sharpness and quickness anymore. But the frustration of having an injury and dealing with that on a weekly basis, in the end, it was what forced me to retire at 34, even though I felt I could still play a few more years. Just it wears on you after a while, and it's difficult to keep coming back from it. I did everything outside of the field to help me with those things. I was fortunate enough to be a disciplined person from the get-go. Never drank very much, never smoked, never partied too much, and so I think all those things helped me to manage the injury part and get the most out of my career, which otherwise I don't think I would have lasted very long. That drink can really be the way down for a lot of players, but it was difficult times for sure. Not being able to step on the field when you feel like you're one of the better players out there is frustrating.
Yeah, because what you want to do is not only play, but you want to help your team, don't you? I mean, that's basically what you want to do. You want to help your teammates around you. And if you're sitting on the touchlines, of course, that's something you can't do.
Yeah, exactly. And the struggle that comes with not playing regularly to go and find the next opportunity, the next club to play for, or the next contract with, and remain. That was part of the reason why it didn't materialize at Swindon Town, I feel. If he took over, I had a contract on the table, and then it was rethought at the end of the year when my knee was kind of playing up a little bit. I thought it was manageable, which it was. I ended up coming to the US and playing another 7 years. So I was right about that. But, as a football club, I'm learning now on the business side how many things go into that decision, and it's not easy.
I was talking to a friend of mine over the weekend, and we were talking about the last season when the Town went down. But I always remember one particular performance by you at Millmore against Rotherham United in December, and it was a 1-0 away win, and you dropped back into the centre back position, and we both agreed that was just pure Miglioranzi. It was a wonderful, wonderful performance. Do you remember that game? I think Rory Fallon got the winner. And it was a great result because you had a decent December whereby you put some decent results together. Sadly, not enough to stay up. But, when you did drop back, you had the vision to see in front of you. I guess that helped, did it?
Yeah, it did. It was a tough game. I felt like we're under the cosh a lot for large parts of the game. But it was one of the few times I captained Swindon Town. Sean O'Halloran was out. And that was the reason, if I'm recalling correctly, that if he used me back there. And, I think I won my battles. There wasn't much to play forward to. We had a lot of youngsters on the team, and they were put under a lot of pressure. That particular game, everything kept coming back at us, but we were resolute. We knew we didn't want to come out of there without a result, and it's probably looking back now, one of the games that I battled the most, you know, in order to get a result for us. And again, like I said, the privilege of wearing the armband for Swindon Town. I think it was 1 or 2 times, so probably the most successful captain ever. Both times I wore it, we won. So there's one for a pub quiz.
Marvellous, 100% record. Well, it was also my 50th birthday weekend, so thank you very much indeed for making it a very special occasion and a great game.
Pleasure.
It really was. It was a terrific performance. And, you know, whenever people talk to me about you, that's the one that kind of comes to mind because it was such a different game you had to play.
Yeah.
But it just, you know, wonderful game. At the end of that season, then, obviously, you are forced with a decision. And there were rumours that you might go along the A420 to a team that plays in yellow, beginning with O, who are currently playing your other old team in the playoffs, whose name we can't mention. Was that a reality? Was that going to happen? What happened there?
I remember coming out on some of the news, you know, Swindon Town followers and that kind of stuff. Honestly, I never heard from them directly. My agent never talked to me about any of that. Obviously, it's good for conversation, you know, when you're a Swindon Town fan. So, but it didn't materialize. I was actually closer to signing with Doncaster than Oxford, and it just, again, didn't materialize for different reasons. The opportunity that I got to come to the US at a time when, you know, I'm trying to manage my body so that I can play as long as possible and, you know, be on the field. Coming to the US at that time was a good option if I wasn't going to stay at Swindon Town, just because of the load of games. You know, here they were playing 30 games. There I was trying to play 40 plus. My first season at Swindon Town, I managed to do that, and then the next couple of seasons it didn't materialize. But it's tough to be a footballer, like you said, and not be on the field. So I had to try to think about the next thing to do. The opportunity to stay at Swindon Town was there. We talked about it for a long time. A contract was on the table 1 week, the next it wasn't, and then other conversations developed. I would have loved to have stayed there. You know, it was a club that, again, I tell everybody how much Swindon Town means to me, and I really mean it when I say that.
You mentioned Ifeanora. I think that was a case. The club was in transition as well that summer, wasn't it? And you mentioned where Colin Todd was going to leave the club before. Ife, I think, then left pretty soon afterwards as well, didn't he? And Dennis Wise came in. So the club was in a period of transition as well, I guess. And was that a factor or not?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I look back a little bit of my Swindon Town times, and I struggled a lot with the decision of Kingy leaving. You know, he and I had such a close relationship. I thought he'd done such a good job with the club. Of course, again, I don't know anything that's happening on behind the scenes with the chairman and stuff on the business side of the club, so I can't comment on that. But one of the things I regret is not speaking up about, you know, how I felt that Kingy was being unfairly treated. You know, I loved Iffy, and I think we did need some kind of a change, and he was involved in taking over. I think a lot was being made about the fact that, you know, Andy King wasn't the most eloquent when communicating and that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, what we brought to the field with him was what we needed to do. That was our job. You know, it wasn't to sound pretty and nice when we're speaking to the press. But I wish I had spoken up about Kingy, because he deserved it, you know, from myself, from a lot of the other players, for the way he handled himself and the way he cared for us, and always, I felt, kept us out of harm's way a lot of times, in a lot of ways.
So back to the United States. Now, you didn't have a bad time in the United States, did you? You went to LA Galaxy, but you went to Columbus, where you did okay, I think it's fair to say. and you won the MLS Cup. Now, you can't do better than that in United States football stroke soccer, can you? That's a pretty good honor to have, isn't it?
No, very, very good. Again, extremely lucky to work with some of the best coaches in the U.S. When I finished at Swindon Town, the talk of me going back to the UK and to the Northeast was prevalent. And then I happened to get married that summer and went to Tahiti for my honeymoon. On the way back, Graham Smith, my agent, called and said, look, there's an opportunity for you to go to LA Galaxy and on trial. Frank Yallop was the head coach there, and he gave me the opportunity to be seen again at a transition period in my career due to injuries, and successful trial period resulted in a contract in the MLS, which is, we can't go into what those contracts look like and how unfair I feel they are for players, but it was an opportunity for me to come to a nice city, a very big club, great organization, with the way they treated players and resources. And at the end of that season, unfortunately, they had to make way in the wage bill. I was earning $50,000 or something of that nature. They needed the $50,000 to sign David Beckham. So
I think it was 125 million, wasn't it? His contract over 5 years, something ridiculous like that. It's crazy. And the MLS, I'm guessing at that time, was beginning to get big, wasn't it? There were marquee signings coming in, like the Beckhams, people like that. And it was beginning to take off at that time, wasn't it?
Yeah, a lot of very good players came in at that time. Thierry Henry, Rafa Marquez. New York did spend a little bit of money with that. But you look at the success it has had since, and the trajectory it's going in terms of it being a league of choice for players, somewhere you come to develop your career and not just a place to retire anymore. And I give a lot of credit to David Beckham's move over here for that. He came at a really good age still, when he was still top of his game, and he was instrumental in changing the direction in which this league went. I mean, from his time till even when I retired 5 years, as a result of him being here, the attention this league got and how much it ramped up. And now you see the level of players that they're able to sign. They're going out and getting the best young players in South America, and those guys are using this as a stepping stone to Europe. It's a different league altogether, for sure.
Do you think it's taken seriously now? I mean, I've been to a few games in the States. I went to Henry at the Red Bulls and Seattle, where it's just madness there. I mean, it's a crazy place to go watch football. Do you think it's being taken seriously now as a league? Which, they fought to do that a long time. Obviously, back in the 70s, the likes of Pelé and Best and people like that going. That fizzled out. But do you think the league now is being taken seriously, not only in the US, but in Europe as well?
Yeah, I think worldwide, everyone is looking at it completely different. I talk to players on a weekly basis, and I talk to agents from outside. And this is a stopping point that a lot of people are considering. It's a path to more success and to higher leagues, more now than ever. I think everyone is considering it. The exposure that the league gets, I think that as Americans do, the marketing side of it and ramping all that up has played a big part in it. And but the level on the field has also increased to a level where it becomes a much more appealing game to watch, a more attractive. I think there's a little bit of a ways to go with that. Or MLS is a little limited with the amount of money they put into the teams due to the salary cap. But I think as that grows and opens up a little bit more, there's going to be more and more talent wanting to come this way. Hopefully we get past this pandemic period and you start seeing the investment in the league go up even further. And yeah, I'm certainly enjoying being in the midst of it and seeing it grow and watching the level of play really improve. The level of athleticism has always been very, very high, but now you have the technical and tactical qualities shining through too. I think just we need to see the rosters go deeper with higher quality players, but again, Americans mean business when they mean business. You know, the amount of money that's being spent in player development and academies. You look at some of the facilities that are around in terms of that. It's really remarkable. We're not really trying to catch up to the Europeans and doing it in some cases better than them. It's of course going to take some time for it to turn into results. So.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the women's team are the world champions, best in the world without any question, and very high profile. The obvious question is, I think the US got to the quarterfinals of the Men's World Cup fairly recently. And when you look at the sides of the US, for goodness sake, and the population from all different ethnicities, there must come a point when they are going to challenge seriously for the World Cup, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy, you know.
No.
I have a dear friend who's an English coach named Stephen Constantine, and he put it the best. He said to me, look at the countries that have won the World Cup, and what do they have in common, you know? And football is a huge part of their culture. And I feel until the US has reached that, which we're close to it, it might take another generation, you know, so to say 5-10 years, I think would be too optimistic, but certainly in the next 20 years and beyond, I feel like the US will have everything to be a challenger, because now they are producing players, you know, and players are being coached from the age of 10 at the very highest level, you know, so it's only a matter of time before that all, you know, yields results. So without question, I think it's going to be a contender for sure, because the league just keeps growing. Yeah,
Which is the right way round, rather than in the 70s when they kept importing the big names. Of course, they now have the younger players coming through. You are on the other side of the fence, I guess, now. When you were talking about, you know, the financial side of the game, you're involved in the financial side of the game, aren't you? How cutthroat is that business? You know, you're in the sports agency business. You know, when you go and represent a player, say, how hard do you have to be to go into those negotiations? You're a nice chap. You're a wonderful chap. You're a very nice chap. Yeah. But do you have to put a different hat on?
Yeah, not really. I don't change much of my approach. Obviously, I'm knowledgeable about the business, so I think if you know something inside and out, you're going to be okay. I think I came into the business with a lot of questions. You know, last couple of years of my career, deciding what path to take and what new career to begin. Coaching was always enticing, but then the volatility of that and raising a family kind of didn't work for me. I do put my family first place, and that and God, you know, are first in my life. So I wouldn't jeopardize any of that. But so going into the business side of it as an agent was a really good opportunity. I walked into the agency that represented me for 15 years, and I had a father-son relationship with the gentleman who ran the agency here. He gave me my start, albeit, you know, he didn't hand everything to me. I was working basically for commissions for a long time, and as it took a while for it to ramp up. But one of the big questions I had going into this business was, do I have the mettle to deal with the day-to-day stuff that I'd seen, you know, as a player? And fortunately enough, you know, with my background and my degree in administration, I thought it was a good fit. Plus the gentleman, again, my mentor and partner here at the agency now, Graham Smith, was very wise in his years and told me, look, do things correctly and it'll serve you well in the long term. So I don't think I have to compromise that integrity to be an agent. I do things right and I get the right response as a result. And I ask for what's fair for my clients. I'm not eye gouging anybody. I don't take a penny that's not mine. And I think that I'm seeing at least the people I'm involved with as agents have the same mentality. The game is changing a little bit and we're asking for more transparency, and clubs are also acting more transparently on their side, which helps the equation. So, I think that there's a positive light, hopefully, to be shed on agents in the future. And if I can have a little hand in that, earn a decent living, I'm not asking to become a millionaire out of it. I want my players to do well. I want them to have a career path laid out in front of them and beyond. So I just want what's best for them. And I don't think I have to do some of those things that you hear about in order to be a successful agent and to do well for my client.
Is it purely football that you deal in, or do you go into the other branches of American sports?
I know nothing about any other sport. I don't watch it. I'm terrible at playing it. So let's stick to what I know,
Fair enough. Very good. Yeah. So you're not the Tom Cruise type of agent that we all remember from that film. I can't remember Jerry Maguire. Yes, that's the one. So you're not that sort of agent.
No, not at all. Actually, yeah. I guess the only thing he did have the integrity bit and the realization that he could do well and do good and do well. That's my aim in all of this. And I'm one of those agents that I don't want to be in the limelight. I do the deal and do my part. If there's a signature to be done, the players doing all the hard work. Honestly, I'm just making sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed for them. And that's the way.
If I was to give you a hypothetical question, somebody who scored a lot of goals for a promoted club this season, and then is out of contract, and then is offered a decent contract with a club up north, without mentioning any names, who might have got a lot of goals for Swindon this season. It is a player has to look after his family first and foremost, himself, doesn't he? And it is a fact of life in football that players do move on, and that's the way it is.
Yeah, it's a tough scenario that evolves all the time when a player is reaching that situation, when he's in good form, especially because he's going to have suitors. It's a tough one because I watched Sunderland until I die, and you had the whole Maja thing. The club, I feel, could have done a little bit better there and kept the player, and maybe they would have won promotion. There's so many unknowns and so many factors that go into it. From the player side, I don't know. I was the type that if I get to be at a club and I know I'm going to be playing and I'm a big piece, I'd rather have that than go and earn money somewhere else, because I feel the money will follow another good year at that club. It's more likely that I'll have another good year at the club where I'm already established and have been doing my work. So there's my pitch for that player to stay at Swindon Town.
Excellent. We'll see what happens over the next day or so. Let's talk about your favourite Swindon memory. Is there one? I mean, you must have loads, but is there one that really sticks in your mind for your time at the county ground? Which, as I said, there are players who come and players who go, but you're always spoken of very fondly. Is there one particular memory that sticks in your mind?
Every game was stepping on the county ground. I have to give so much credit to the groundsmen there for the surface they provided us to play on. It was like being at a top level club, and to be able to step out on that field and have the warmth and reception that I had from the fans, likening me to Zidane, which at first I must say, I thought it was a slight, maybe. But after a while, after getting to know everybody, it was really heartwarming. I can't thank everybody enough for all that. Obviously, memories, scoring a goal professionally is always takes the cake for me. reaching the playoffs ended on a sour note, but that was a remarkable team we had. In terms of goals that I scored, probably the one at the end of that season against Luton Town was one that sticks in my mind. You know, kind of the sort of thing I wish I had a little bit more of an ego as a player, and I would have been capable to pull off more of that stuff, but I think my humility held me back a little bit. The best players I played with were the meanest. You know, didn't make them bad people, but they knew what they wanted, and they wanted to win above everything else. You know, so.
Yeah, you like to pop from the edge of the penalty area, didn't you? You know, if you had a chance to shoot, you'd shoot, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I did, and I thought I had a really good shot. Unfortunate with the number of times I hit crossbars and posts, and ball deflected and didn't go in. Unlike some, Frank Lampards of this world. I mean, I'm not trying to compare myself with Frank Lampard because he could certainly strike a ball, but I wish once in a while I would have taken a nice deflection for me. Just one of those things, you know, football. But I did enjoy having a pop from outside the box, as you put it, because scoring a long range goal, there's no better feeling. Yeah.
Absolutely not. Well, Stefani, thank you very much indeed. We've got some questions from the audience, if you like. So you happy to stick around for another 10, 15 minutes? You okay with that?
Yeah, my pleasure.
Marvellous.
Absolutely.
Hannah, thank you very much indeed, Stefani. It's been a fascinating insight, really, into a player who's had his injuries, but has always battled through, and, you know, with good grace. And it's a very rare thing to find. So thank you very much indeed for that. Hannah, are you around? Have you got some more questions?
Oh, yes, we've got plenty of questions for you. So I think we'll start off with, so who were your footballing idols growing up, both either in the UK and in the US?
All right. I grew up obviously in Brazil, watching in the 80s a very great Flamengo team with a lot of very, very good players, but Zico was at his prime at that time. The first time I remember crying about football was, you know, him missing a penalty against France in '86, and me basically wanting to beat my dad up because he predicted that Brazil was going to lose, and I did not take lightly to that. So Zico during that time, obviously, as I moved to the US and started watching a little bit more of the English football, John Barnes was always a player that was kind of, I don't know, I had an attraction to, you know, as for his style of football, his creativity, obviously goal against Brazil.
Yeah, I was going to say, he scored a decent goal in the Maracanã, didn't he? It was quite an effort, that one.
Sure. It piqued my interest for sure. And I was fortunate enough when I was at Portsmouth to play against him at the Valley when he was at Charlton, ending his career. And so we played a reserve match there, and one of the highlights of my career was he walked up to me after the match and shook my hand and said, "You're a hell of a player."
Wow.
So
very good.
Very nice.
Pretty decent.
And I played with some unbelievable players too. Robert Prozinecki at Portsmouth was out of this world, you know, like incredible. But I think I may have skipped an answered too early. Maybe that's a question later on.
I got some. I went through some pictures looking at your career. I mean, my goodness, you played Barcelona. No. But you played against Barcelona, Man United, high-profile friendlies, and you know, there's a picture of you alongside Messi, Ronaldinho, you know, Thierry Henry, as you mentioned, in the MLS. You've played against some pretty decent players. Let's be honest.
Yeah, in the MLS, you know, we've seen a fair share of high-caliber players coming through. You know, again, the movement of the league and growing in stature, they have given us that opportunity. The friendly matches that they put on every summer and bring those teams down are a really nice experience for the players. And as a result of that, I have those pictures. The club was both occasions when we played Barcelona and Milan was kind enough to all the players to frame pictures of those matches for all of us, which was a really nice gesture. And again, I touched on how class LA Galaxy was as an organization, and those are the little touches that, you know, don't cost much, but mean the world to players and keep them tight. I've had similar experiences with Swindon Town and Portsmouth. You know, the being tied in through supporter groups and the trust at Swindon Town has kept me very much involved and interested. And I'm just waiting to win the lottery so I can buy Swindon Town.
Wow, the dog likes that idea.
So you've touched upon a couple of the players that you've played with, but who was the best player that you've played against?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I had never really thought much about that one. I have to think a little bit more about that. You know, there's definitely have to be somebody high caliber who came to the MLS. Probably Thierry Henry megged me really badly in one of the matches, left me standing still, and he didn't even try. You know, so I would have hated to see him at his highest level for Arsenal. So obviously a huge name, but yeah, I'd have to give it some more thought to think about who was the toughest one, because I think it goes more to how difficult it was for me to defend them and play against them versus just the level of players that they were.
Yeah, fair enough. Are you still in touch with any of your ex-Swindon teammates?
Yeah, very much so. I in fact had a message from David Duke just yesterday. He's booking his trip post-pandemic in May to the US, and if all works out, we'll be getting together. Hopefully, Vegas or Arizona, somewhere like that. I still talk to Rory Fallon. Last week, Rory's been coaching New Zealand, and now he's at Plymouth. So touch base with him with regards to a player who had been put my way to see if I can help him and see what he thinks of him. So a little bit of that. I stay in touch with Sam Parkin quite a bit. I know Sam is doing really well and narrating your games. A lot of character there, hopefully, for everyone to enjoy. I certainly get that side of him all the time. I'm trying to think of others. Andy Nicholas, I see from time to time when he comes to the US. He's representing Liverpool academies internationally. So whenever he's in town in California, we always get together, and I speak to him. Trying to think of some others. Charlie Common Platt, I spoke with not too long ago. Pook, Michael Pook. Oh, there's a number. I stay in touch with quite a number. Unfortunately, nowadays, technology is such that being in touch with people is that much easier, right?
Well, we're talking to you on your porch in California. It doesn't get a lot better than that, does it? Really?
So we've had a question in on Twitter which said you were a very calm and skillful player back when you were with Swindon. Did you learn this from your days in Brazil or early days in Brazil?
I think the way I played reflected my character quite a bit. I tend to take things in stride in life in general. I have a very, very deep-rooted belief in God, and I think that gives me a calmness in all aspects of my life. You know, I think at times in my career I was questioned about my faith and, you know, whether that held me back, and I said to them, that's absurd. You know, if there's anything it does, it makes me fight even more because I have a greater cause to represent, not just my own. So I think it all stemmed back to that, you know, my belief in God and the support I had from my family, the fact that I knew I had an education to fall back on in case football did not pan out, you know, and then the rest of it is just pure joy, you know, just growing up. I didn't really feel the pressure of playing. When I was on the field, it was playing, which if I had even more financial support, it would have, I think I touched a little bit when I was talking to Vic, the confidence part and all that sort of stuff was something that maybe could have taken me a little bit higher if I had a little bit more of that. But yeah, just loving playing the game. And yeah, you can't control what the game is going to bring to you. Some days you have bad matches, some days you have very good ones, and staying even keeled, knowing that there's always a next match was what kind of kept me calm.
We've had a question from one of the guys, or one of the fans that used to live out in the US. He said, when you won the MLS Cup, did you get a trip to Disney World? Apparently that's the thing.
Yeah, no, I didn't. Yeah, it's a saying for sure. A lot of people say that, and Disney is a wonderful place. I've since been a couple of times with my kids. Nothing of that nature. I was a little bit unfortunate that after our 2008 championship, I went back to LA Galaxy. Unfortunate just in the sense that I missed out on going to the White House and meeting Obama there with the team because of my schedule with LA Galaxy didn't permit me to join the team and go do that. So that was one of the highlights of winning the championship that unfortunately I wasn't able to get. Disney is a must though, for sure. So.
I agree, for sure. So did you ever think of going into coaching when you finished up playing?
Yeah, I touched a little bit about that. I when I was about 30, I started taking my badges. So I have my youth coaching badges here in the US. If the opportunity came, now that my kids are a little bit more grown up, I think I would maybe consider a situation where I go into a professional club and help on the youth level and then work my way up. But, having moved around as much as I did for my career and then seeing what coaches go through and the sacrifices they make, even when you're a successful coach, you may be packing up your bags and going to a new club. The volatility of that kind of swayed me away from it. Although I still am quite heavily involved in youth coaching here in the area when my work affords me the time.
Nice. And do you see anything differently now that you're an agent rather than when you were playing?
Times have changed for sure. I don't know. I don't know if it's the way I was wired, and again, touching back on why I wanted to play football so much. Money and providing for myself, from my family eventually was certainly a big part of it. But I feel players nowadays have a little bit more focus on their outside personality, social media, than there needs to be. I think they need to go back to focusing on football and a little bit less on the stuff outside of it. But it's the world we live in. There's ways of monetizing, which I can't begrudge these players. Careers are short. I was fortunate to play for 15 years. I didn't make a ton of money, and I see, if I had a 15-year career, how difficult it can be to take the next step in life. And I can't imagine having a short career not making money. And so when you're in the game, having the opportunity to monetize on it as much as possible, you kind of have to be involved in the social media world and that aspect of it. So I think that's the part that's changed a little bit more. Our lives are under the microscope, and we don't help as players. The players don't help because they're feeding into it a little bit as well. So that's the biggest difference I see for sure. I think the level of play also and level of athleticism, the science behind it has gotten so high that we're also seeing a much higher caliber athlete than when I was playing.
We've just got a couple more for you. So what do you miss most about the UK?
Without doubt, it's football. obviously I was fortunate enough to make some wonderful relationships in and around the club, in and around the communities that I was at. But come weekend and, you know, watching Soccer AM, getting ready for football to start. Does Soccer AM exist anymore? I guess.
I'm not sure, to be honest, because I'm normally travel to games, but
I think
I
it
don't
still
know.
does.
I think it still
I think
does.
it's
Yes.
still about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, football is such a huge part of my life, and it's a big reason I am the person that I am. And to have that as a day-to-day reminder when you lived in the UK, there's nothing like it. You know, I talk to players about my experience playing there, and they have no idea what it's like. You know, it's completely different. The pressure that comes from it, all stuff that helps round you as a person. And if my wife wasn't American, I'd be living in London probably and enjoying life in England. I really can't say enough about my time there, the experiences I had, the culture, the people, everything was very, very. It's still very dear to me. One day I hope for the chance to be back. My sister still lives in London, so I have that opportunity. Hopefully, once we get past this this tough period that we're facing.
Yeah, fingers crossed you'll be able to make it back over. And then just one final one for you. What's one thing that the UK sort of football can learn from Major League Soccer?
Oh, I think we're learning from the UK, you know, in a lot of aspects. I think I came to the US at a time when the MLS was still facing a lot of growing pains. I think I suffered as a player contractually because of some of the parameters that were in place to help protect the game and protect the growth of the game. It's gone to a different level now, but I, you know, as an agent, I of course want to allow my players the opportunity to make as much as possible. But I think the UK has to closely look at how much is being spent. You know, how can clubs survive? Just finding a better balance. You know, I think everyone can benefit from that. Players don't benefit when clubs go under. Cities don't benefit. So, you know, I think that there's a better balance to be struck, and MLS has some things that do help with that. And as it grows, I think it'll keep wanting to spend more money because it has to compete with the international leagues. But I think that's definitely something where we from the UK should look as a football body to kind of analyze a little bit deeper and get into it. Maybe
Obviously,
not my players can get paid high, and we'll figure it out.
Obviously, we don't know. I mean, there is talk of many clubs having trouble because of the situation where they're in a minute. Wigan are in administration, and you know, clubs aren't getting any revenue at the minute. So it's a difficult time for everybody concerned, really. And until we're through this and fans can go back into stadiums, it's an unknown factor, isn't it?
Yeah, so outside of the major leagues that have the football TV revenue, it's going to be tough, and there's going to be adjustments that need to be made, and maybe it's one for the better, you know, that helps football control the spending a little bit and get to a place where it could be more sustainable. I think we're going to have to make sacrifices in all aspects of our lives, and football is such a big part of everybody's life in the UK, and I think an adjustment there is going to be required as well. And in the end, I think it'll be for the better. I look at what's going on, and it's hard to not be negative about all that's going on, but I'd like to also think that what we're facing now will set us up to learn and come out of it better, you know, look at it as a new starting point. So
Well, I think that's all the questions we have for you, Stefani. Thank you very much indeed. It's been an absolute joy talking to you. And goodness me, we're not jealous at all about you sitting on your porch in California with your birds singing in the background. Sounds absolutely fantastic. And we wish you all the very best.
My door's open for you anytime.
Well, that's always lovely to know.
The West Coast, let me know, okay?
Okay. And don't forget, of course, when you are in the UK and we are back and we are allowed to have fans in the stadium, you're always welcome back at the county ground. You know that. So it'd be lovely to see you there again.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to doing that. You know, as my work as an agent improves, that's certainly something I need to do, not just professionally, but I would love to come back and reconnect with everyone, see some old faces. I don't know who's still at the club that I would remember. You know, is Jill Strange? I don't know if anybody, Martin Trumbull, who used to be in the community office, and I don't know who's there that from my time, but I'd love to reconnect and give my thanks post-career to everything that they did for me whilst over there. Dick Mackey and his family in Swindon Town, you know, who put me up for months at the beginning of my time there. So many people to thank, and really unbelievable memories of Swindon Town. Hopefully they figured out that crazy roundabout.
Well, I know Sally Carter and Brad Carter. Jill is still there, by the way, apparently. But Sally Carter and Brad Carter would like to send their best wishes to you. I know that you spoke to them quite a bit when you were here, and they were always very grateful for you speaking to them. So they send their best wishes. Steph, thank you very much. It's been an absolute joy. And as we said, please come back to the county ground and see everybody sometime soon. What are you doing now? Are you? What are you doing for the rest of the day? Are you kind of eating oranges in the sunshine? What are you up to?
My kids are inside, going a bit crazy. You know, we've had several months of this, and keeping them entertained is tough. I have to do some work calls, which I'm just trying to build up some work and get things ramped up, so I have an income next year of some sort. You know, but probably take my son out to the pitches to do a little bit of football. He's football mad. Wants to go and play for Juventus. So I have my work out for me as an agent. If he's not good enough, so it's we'll see. He's young still. He's only 10 years old, but there's definitely we're keeping football alive and strong in our family for sure. So I'm just hanging out with family, doing a little bit of work from home, which is all I've done. As you say, I benefit from being able to take calls outside in this beautiful California weather, so can't get much better than that. But I thank you very much for the time. I'm always available at your disposal for anything to help the club, to help the supporters. Hopefully when I come back up there, if it's not next year, the year after that, we'll be in the championship, and I can be from the town end with the fans with my shirt off.
Marvelous. Yeah, one of the ones that you wore behind you, that would be great. And keep entering that lottery, Stefani. That would be fantastic if you wanted to do that.
I'll invest the money and see if I can help otherwise.
Fabulous.
But it's been great. You guys stay well.
And you.
And you.
Keep safe. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Stefani Miglioranzi, Hannah, what a gentleman, what a scholar, wonderful person. Thank you. Stefani, thank you very much indeed. We're back next week with another player from Swindon's past who I think deserves the title Mr. Swindon Town. That's all I'm going to say at this moment in time. But we're back, I think, same time next week, Hannah.
We are back same time next week. Chris should probably be joining you next week, so you'll be having a new face on.
Lovely. Stefani, thank you very much indeed. Hannah, thank you very much indeed. Enjoy the rest of the day.
But I was Mr. Swindon Town. What is this?
What is Mr. Swindon Town? Well, apart from you, clearly.
Yeah, I thought I was. That's why I joined.
Mr. Swindon Town 2, we'll call him. Is that all right?
The 100. See you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks very much.
Bye, Hannah.